Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion. And our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to do a mic off. I've got a ton of mics. I can't promise this is going to be organized or particularly tight. What I can promise is there's a bunch of mics sitting over here. We're going to plug a bunch of them in. Some of them are USB mics. Some of them are XLR mics. Some of them are just, there's lots of different mics here. And we're going to try them all. We're going to compare them to this mic and see what you think of them. So it's nice when they're all in one place because each group is compared in the same location. So stay tuned for that. If you've got questions, go ahead and throw those questions into Makana. You can throw them in. You can vote on them. You can chat among there. If you're not in Makana, of course, you can use the QR code. So just use this little QR code here, or go askofficehours.global, and just go to askofficehours.global. You can put those questions in any time of the day. But this is a particularly good time because we're actually doing the show, and we'll move those questions in. We've got a lot of questions, but go ahead and throw those in, and we'll get to them there. One quick note: when you're asking those questions, one question at a time. If you ask a whole bunch of questions in one submission, it won't get through. So anyway, one question at a time through the QR code, and let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Bill, what do we have?
Mike Edwards starts us off from Brooklyn, New York. Morning, everyone. Panel. Is it possible to input a 4K feed into a 40x40 Blackmagic VideoHub, then downscale and output to 1080p and vice versa? I want to use my extreme ISO as a switcher controller for the VideoHub, but still benefit from its 4K capabilities.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, you can certainly do the vice, but not the versa. If you do, you would be softening the image.
You can't actually scale in the VideoHub though. So
in the VideoHub, yeah.
Yeah. No, the hub won't scale, and that's a good thing. You don't want your hub to do processing for you because if it does that processing inside of it, it can add latency and reduce stability, etc. There are some that do that. Ross has some of their routers will do a bunch of processing in some of the cards, but in the Blackmagic card, it is strictly we're moving this to here, and that way you're not worried about embeds and de-embeds and a lot of other things that you might. It's a very, very strictly. I'm taking this video signal with everything that it's got, and I'm outputting it here. So if you want to do any scaling, you're going to have to take the router, go out to a scaler, come back to the router with that scaled image. But you can't do any scaling in the router itself. It's not built for that. And again, I think that especially at that price point, you wouldn't want it. Go ahead, Courtney.
It does resynchronize, but Alex, I don't have one. Do you know if it will change from the different flavors of 1080p to 1080i, et cetera?
No processing.
No processing whatsoever. It will resynchronize though to a common clock, right?
It will do a reference to a clock. Yeah, it'll reference it to everything else that's there, but it's not. Right. I don't think it's yeah. Go ahead, Mitchell. It's not resyncing that video footage though. Go ahead.
What else would you consider using with that? A Terranex just to accomplish all those things that we just discussed?
Typically, we run it into a Terranex to do that. So anytime we're doing scaling or other things like that, we're going to run it out to a Terranex, and we have typically a rack of a couple of them. We send every kit out with usually at least one. But oftentimes we might have 4 or 8 of them just kind of sitting there waiting to be used, so that if we need to scale things, we can do that there. Now, another way to do that, if you're doing your whole show, let's say in 1080p, but you want to record your cameras at 4K for ISOs, you might send them all into the router, send them all to HyperDex. So you send them into the router, send them all to HyperDex on their own, set your constellation to let's say your 4K constellation or 8K constellation, set that to 1080p and connect them all. It has its own Terranex scalers. So it would scale them down as they go into. You'll add a little bit of latency, but you'll scale them down as they go into the switcher, and then the switcher can run at 1080p and have a 1080p show. But in that case, you're running your raw cameras into the router. Take the router, run it. And this is one of the advantages of having the router instead of just having a switcher. In the switcher, they all have to be converted to the same thing. So you have maybe 40 inputs and 24 outputs, but they're still all going to belong to the same resolution once they enter the switcher. This allows you to record at 4K, but run the show at 1080p, which you may want to do. So that's the reason that a router sometimes is still useful, even with all the I/O that you might get in a switcher. And the other thing is that the switcher, the ATEM switchers really only output stereo. So if you have 16 channels coming in, or 8 channels coming in, or 6 channels coming in, you'll lose that on the way out. So you need to, if you want to maintain that pipeline, you need to have a router that isn't going to do anything to it other than move the signal from one place to another. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida comes up next. When rendering audio only from DaVinci Resolve, any way to set a script to run when rendering is complete? The setting is on the video render tab, so it doesn't seem possible. Current silly workaround, he says, is adding a short video render to the queue.
Go, Jeff.
Yeah, and this is just one of those frustrations that appears to be the case. I hope someone has an answer of some of the differences between working with video and then working in Fairlight. And this seems to be one of them. I'm also open to other or better workarounds that this workaround takes almost as much time as if I didn't even have the automation.
Yeah, I think that you're in a world that no one's used it that way before. So I think that the best thing to do is to put a request in to Blackmagic. So and tell them what you're doing. They may go, "Oh, I didn't think of that," because you're just with any of the software when you're doing something that you don't see a lot of other people doing. It just means that they haven't had the request. They haven't really thought about it, and it's not as big a priority as adding all the other features that they're trying to add. And so if you start to be a little bit of a squeaky wheel about it, they can do it. It does sound like it outputs it. It just doesn't do the automation. And it's probably just because they didn't hook it up, because you're probably the first one to ask if you ask. So I would recommend giving them that suggestion and seeing what happens. It doesn't sound like, if they've already got automation for the video end and you have to turn that on, it doesn't sound like it'll be a huge lift for them to fix that. But every lift is a thing. Like what you're asking for is probably, you have to realize inside of a large organization, the thing you're asking for may seem like a simple problem, but it's probably $50,000. Like just that button to do that is probably $50,000 in time for them to do it. So they have to decide whether the ROI is there for them to add that button. But you should think about every button being, and that's for a vertical app like DaVinci. If you think about an app, a big app like Keynote or Pages, you want to think of every button there costing like $500,000. like in the amount of time it takes to QA it and to put it in and everything else. And so I think we always have to keep that in mind about why they may not add that right now. But go ahead and put the request in and see what happens. Let us know if anything changes. Next question.
Jack Ruppel in Breckenridge, Colorado. What was the panel's experience ordering Vision Pro? Ludites need not comment. Now that it's pre-released, will there be a flood of content no longer held back by NDA?
Go ahead, Nigel.
I don't think it's actually released publicly for another 2 days. You can't order it until the 19th. I will tell you that I don't think I'm going to order one. I think my big purchase of the year is probably going to be a new iPad Pro. But I have to tell you, the website is endlessly frustrating to me on Apple. They've built one of these very modern, page down forever websites. And I don't know whether that's because they're trying to not make it a very consumer friendly thing. In a product lifecycle, the first stage is often thought of as adopters, but actually it's innovators. And innovators tend to buy for 2 reasons. One, they want the education and they are willing to throw the money away to get the education. Or B, they're scared of not having one because it will embarrass them in front of their friends. I'm in neither of those categories, so I'm going to let Alex and others make the first purchase, and then I'll be in on the second round.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, it's not even available for pre-order for another 2 days, and I'm all the way in. I've been saving for this. I know that I may or may not regret this in 5 years, but you know what? Carpe diem.
I'm as a media producer who has been doing spatial video of some version for over 20 years. I look at it as the next platform I want to develop for, and so of course I'm going to buy one because I'm going to try to figure it out. Like what content looks good here, and what content can we shoot here? What can we think? And I need to think about it. And the only way to think about it is to have one. So I think I fit into that area that Nigel talked about of wanting to figure out what's there and figure out what's possible inside that platform. I think that all those folks that got rid of their stereo cameras, we had these big stereo rigs. Really wish I was talking to one of them, and he had 30 at one point in time. And he only has 2 left. He's like, "Oh, I can't sell you those anymore," because he was selling them for like whatever you want for them. Like he was like, what do you want for it? In last NAB or 2 NABs ago, he was like, well, what do you want to pay for it? Like he's just trying to get it out of his warehouse. They had originally cost $60,000 each. And when I called him again, he was, after the announcement, he was like, oh, I can't sell that. Like, like I need that one. So I think it's going to be really interesting to develop for it. I do think you're going to see a lot of new content. I think Apple kept a lot of powder dry. I will absolutely agree with Nigel that the endless vertical websites, all of them, are frustrating. Like, I don't know how that became a thing. Like, it's just, but I just want to get to the data, and it's really hard to get to that data when you're scrolling one big image after another. But I guess that's the thing at the moment. A lot of us will be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we'll jump into after hours and we'll kvetz. The 5 o'clock in the morning on Friday, between 5 and 5:05, a lot of us are going to order it. The big problem that we have right now is if you don't order it, then there's a high probability that by Monday, you won't be able to get one until September. Like that's what a lot of us are worried about. The supply is extremely constrained. And even though it's very expensive, we think that Apple will sell every one of the ones that they make for the first 2 or 3 years because they just can't make that many. So I think that's the hard part is you're always going to have a long wait time after Friday morning. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida. Many audio upgrades released for Premiere Pro. Your thoughts? And he's got a link there.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's already out in beta, and I didn't have a chance to go through the whole thing and try it out, but a lot of the updates have to do with fixing dialogue. So apparently that's the number one request from us users of Premiere is ways to fix our dialogue. The only thing is it means I'm going to have to up the game on my Isotope and Waves plugins, which I use for that, which is my secret weapon. But they've got, must be like 5 different things to adjust your dialogue with.
I think it's the easiest thing for them to work on too. So I think that the dialogue is something that it's a really, the ROI on fixing dialogue is really high because a lot of people need it for corporate and for documentaries and for education and everything else, and film. A lot of people need it, and it's the easiest thing to jump on. If you're going to start doing a lot of AI processing, it's the easiest thing to fix. Other types of audio can be a lot harder to work with, and from an AI perspective. And so I think that it makes a lot of sense. The upgrades are impressive. So I think that I think it's really good. I think that what's great about it is that we'll probably see Resolve do almost all those things within the next 6 months. And so there's a lot of pressure. They have a lot of engineering, and they're really going hard on that area. So I think that it's going to be good for everyone as they push forward. But I think that Adobe is really, I will say, taking a leadership position on how to use AI in different places, whether it's Illustrator or Photoshop or a lot of the other things. If you look at the Substance stuff that they're doing, they're really running on all cylinders right now. I think that there was a time when I didn't feel that way, but I do feel like they're really doing a pretty amazing job at tying that stuff together at the moment. I'm not ready to. It hasn't got me ready to subscribe to Premiere yet, but I'm applauding from the sideline that I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
If they put Noise Assist in, would you immediately grab it up?
No, Noise Assist is something that is valuable to me in real time. There's plenty of tools that will do what Noise Assist does in post. I'm not that. It's not particularly amazing in compared to a post system, but Noise Assist is really a real time solution that I think is powerful. Next question.
John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. DJI just released version 2 of the compact digital mic system. You get 32-bit float onboard recording and adapters for direct attach to iPhones. It comes as a single or dual mic kit. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, it looks like they made some really great improvements to it. If we take a look at it, now comes in black or white for the transmitters, although their marketing team didn't quite get the message, and they put the black one on the person wearing white and the white one on the person playing.
I think they did that on purpose. Make sure you can see it.
To ensure that it advertises itself better.
Yeah, exactly. You got to make sure you can see it.
They do have 32-bit float, and another interesting thing that it did is they also, the carrying case here now is made out of metal. I always worried about that carrying case. I have the previous version. It's made out of plastic and it has batteries in it. And when it's fully loaded and you drop it onto the concrete, it could crack or break. So that is great. It does also, besides the 32-bit float recording, it has noise reduction built into it, supposedly. So we, look, once again, they put the black one on the person wearing.
I think it's for contrast. Make sure you know where it is. There, yeah, go ahead.
And the other thing is it has a Bluetooth output, which I think it can output over Bluetooth and over its 2.4 gigahertz to the receiver at the same time, so that people with Bluetooth headsets that may need to monitor, that don't have the receiver access to the receiver headphones, could then monitor the output of that person speaking, like,
Wow.
let's say, the teleprompter operator, if they want to hear. I hope it works that way, because it does have both transmitters in it at the same time, Bluetooth and. I don't think it transmits 32-bit float. The receiver has this little knob on it it's an encoder knob that lets you adjust settings in the menu or adjust volume outputs where you need to do those settings rather than use the touchscreen. Touchscreen is still there, but you can then use the little scroll wheel to adjust the settings once you get inside the menu that you want to adjust. So it's got a lot of handy new features. It costs $40 more than the old one.
I think that the Bluetooth, what it's really designed for, number one, is it connects to their little Osmos. So that's one of the things that, I think that's the primary reason they developed it, because those Osmos already took Bluetooth. The second thing is that the Bluetooth will allow you to just act as a headset to a phone. So if the phone, for some reason, there's audio devices that may not be seen by a host. So Zoom, I think Zoom will see almost everything, but other ones like that may not see an external device being connected to the phone, whereas they'll always see Bluetooth. So a good example might be, I want to add a mic, have a wireless mic, and jump into Clubhouse for some reason. Clubhouse never always wants it to be just a headset. So what this allows you to do is get around that. That's what we use the Dante to Bluetooth converter for, is to get into things like Clubhouse or other things that just show up as a headset. And it shows up as a headset and doesn't show up as anything special. It may not be the best audio, but it will get you in there, and it'll be much better than most likely, especially if you have a situation where you want your phone to be sitting somewhere and being the wide camera, and you want better audio for that phone. You can simply clip that on or have a headset connected to it and get away from it. It's a pretty impressive update. And the 32-bit float record is a big deal. Because it means that for creators especially, they can throw this on, they can hear what's going on, or someone else can hear it, but they can record it, and they have a lot of room for error in that 32-bit float record. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think it's a really good design. The one thing that kind of stuck out for me is I guess there's a little snap-on module on the receiver so that you can output either to Lightning, which there's a ton of legacy devices, but everybody knows that Apple and others are going to USB-C, and so you can snap off that Lightning input and snap on a USB-C input. So that should give it longer legs in terms of utility in the long run. They put a lot of thought and effort into this. All we need to know now is what it actually sounds like and how close it gets to the standard of a wired mic, and that's going to be the last check mark for me to see if it maybe finds a place in my kit.
Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I'm very impressed with the advances that various companies have made towards wireless microphones these days, and the form factor and the feature set have become really impressive. And so, but I'm always concerned when the transmission medium is 2.4 gigahertz, which is true for both Wi-Fi and for Bluetooth. And with the transmitters that have these built-in microphones, they're always omnidirectional, so you need to be careful about the environment that you're using them in. So I would choose my applications for when I would use these versus a professional system carefully.
Yeah. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, they went to a lithium ion instead of a lithium polymer before. And I was just going to tell Bill, too, that the previous version, the 2.0, came with those two adapters. They're built into the case there for Lightning and USB-C that fit on the bottom of your phone. That's not new, but it's always appreciated.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I do think that it's the kind of thing that as a creator or something that you want to have in your bag that you can just kind of connect to your phone. I think it's powerful. A reminder that while those mics are omnidirectional, there is a mic input. So it's a TRS or TRRS, one or the other. We'll take a look. They have their own lav input, and that means you could plug. There's a variety of other mics that could be plugged into there. So you're not limited to that little the omnidirectional mic that's on the transmitter. It has a mic input, so that it just happens to be really convenient to throw it on, but you can absolutely throw other things, onto it as well. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. What is Lectro doing at NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants? He's got a link there to a story.
Let's see, Electrosonic Showcase Wireless for All. I think that they're doing a showcase here. I don't know if these are new. I'm not sure if these. I think these are giveaways of devices that they already have. I'm not sure they're releasing anything new, but I do think it's really cool. So what Electrosonic is showcasing wireless music, wireless for all, and music is something that I think that they haven't done as much in the past. It's really they really are in the film vertical. So I think that, and a lot of other areas there. So I think NAMM is interesting for that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, they've been very big in the in-ear monitors. So monitoring devices, they're very big in. So they have been for many years too. So a lot of musicians use that now for monitoring on stage, and so they're fairly well known in that area. So they have every reason to be at NAMM because they sell a lot of them for in-ear monitors.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Francis Frey in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'd like to get the highest quality separate video recording of each of the 4 participants in a Zoom meeting. I find the user interface for ZoomISO to be intimidating. Does someone have a cheat sheet? And that's a QR code question.
So, it doesn't have to be that intimidating, I will say. Let me pull it open here. The ZoomISO is a relatively straightforward. Now, the hard part is it's going to be hard for me to show it to you because I don't have I don't think I can set up and join this one here. But what we should do is probably do a lab or a workshop in the not too distant future with ZoomISO, so that we can kind of walk you through that process. But let me show you what we have here. Now, one of the things that you're trying to do is you're trying to record 4 participants in a meeting room. And so what we have here is, so if I look at this ZoomISO here, what I can decide is how many, right now I'm only taking 1 in, and I'm using Siphon to do this, but I can do SRT, I can do NDI, I can just send it to a monitor here, but I can say also I want 4, let's say 4 of these. So now it gives me 4 outputs for video. And what I can do here is right now it's do not display, but I could send this one over NDI. We can send these all over NDI if we want. And so that can be NDI to our whatever we're going to record with. We can also then select, and I can't select anything right now. I have participants, I have their share, active speaker, spotlight, active screen share, gallery position. So there's a couple different options that I have here as far as what I'm going to grab. I can decide whether you're going to embed the audio. This all is everything that's happening in the meeting. So you may want to have one that's that way, and then ISO for that person. So you can embed each person's ISO with that video. And so that's probably the easiest way for you to record it. You can, of course, route audio here. And so I'm routing it to a device, which is called Gray Matter with Michael Krasny. That's what mine is routed that way because that's how I route my recordings. But you can just embed them straight into the embedded audio here. Now, so that's the basic setup for how you get it done. It's not that complicated. You do need to make sure that you're a co-host or you're enabled to record. So you hit enable to record, and then it's going to start spitting those out. But the interface itself is actually fairly simple as far as how you set those up and how you output it there. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier on a cheat sheet. We'll work on doing a workshop on it. I use it every week now, at least a couple times a week, and I'm pretty happy with it. There are a couple different ways for you to do that recording. One way that you could do it from ZoomISO is to send it to something like Movie Recorder from Softron, which would be a very expensive way to do it, but it'll take up to 12 outputs and record those from an NDI source. And so that might be one solution that you could use. You could also send them to something like Mimo Live, and Mimo Live you can actually have Mimo Live if you find that the ZoomISO is not something you want to do. Mimo Live will actually join. You can join the Zoom directly, and you'll just get, without ZoomISO in the middle, and you can just set up records in Mimo Live for each input that's coming in, and record all of those to drive. So that's another way to do it, and it would require only that app to make that actually happen. But I think that there's a couple different. I think OBS has some way, to do individual records, and I also don't know. I'm assuming because you're saying ZoomISO that you're on a Mac, so I'm not really listing off things like vMix and other things like that. Just because if you're using ZoomISO, you're probably using a Mac. But VLC, I believe, will also record individual feeds, so that's another place that you could go. So those are a couple different recorders. So I'm not sure if that's the problem or if it's just looking at ZoomISO. But in general, and then of course I set this up for NDI. But of course, if I had a SDI output here, I could output those as well. So you can send them to external. You can see how I can send. You can see how I can. Here, I can send it to any of my monitors, but I could also send it directly to. I can send it to any of the monitors, but I could send it to Siphon or SRT. But that could be SDI as well if I had a card connected to this computer right now. Hopefully that helps. Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes to us from Zach Jeffries, Inland, PNW, looking to set up small streams with automated camera switching via a software switcher, either OBS, Wirecast, Mimo, and so forth, i.e., every 10 seconds to switch between 1, 2, and 3 cameras and so forth.
Go ahead, Marty.
So OBS does have a feature called Smart Automatic Scene Switcher that is built into it, so you can program different sequences of scenes to switch to based either on a trigger, I think, or on time. There are also other plugins that you can find to do something like this.
Yeah, you need. I guess the question that I would have is why. So, what are you doing there? Is it just scenery? Are you just trying to cut between, let's say, a bunch of wide cameras that are covering an event, or is it something that you are actually having a discussion? What you will find is if you're just trying to cut every 10 seconds between people talking, that actually will feel pretty uncomfortable to watch. We've seen people do that in the past. If you're just simply showing some witness cameras that are wide and you just want to have it keep rolling through, that may work well. The first part is having something that's making decisions. So it's a decision, some kind of decision engine. We use Isadora for this show, but there's a lot of different versions of that may have some automation that's built in. That needs to send something to the switcher. So OBS has something built in that you can set those. I believe that there's a cadence for there is something for TriCaster that will do the same thing. And I'm not sure about the other software as far as what they will build from a scripting perspective. But if you have something that can generate a script that makes a call that says, I want to do this, anything that can hear that call, whether it's OSC or other commands, can be automated to do this. And so that might be something for you to look at. If I was doing it because I use Isadora, I would just set up Isadora to wait every 10 seconds and then ask for something else. I'd probably have Isadora talk to Mix Effect Pro and then talk to an ATEM. That would be my solution. But I'd also probably think about whether you can, if that would be for me, the first solution. Second solution, probably figure out how to automate it in Mimo or in vMix if I was on a PC. Next question.
Ryan Nichols in Reno, Nevada. Curious to hear the panel's thoughts on all-in-one lav systems such as the PicoMic, Hollyland's new LARK M2, the Rode Go, and the DJI Mic. Is anyone adopting these systems over a more traditional body pack and lav mic?
Go ahead, Nigel.
I think we've already talked about some of this already. I would tell you when I use a lav, I always hardwire it because I get very paranoid about wireless signals. And if I'm trying to really get the best sound, I always have hardwires into a mixer. The one use case we really didn't talk about, which is actually mine for the Rode Go 2 more than anything, is actually not as a recording system, but a playback system. So I have one going now, and I think we talked about this a few years ago on Office Hours. I have, the show in here. I have something else in this ear, and I use the Rode Go 2 for that. And I found that to be a very useful on-location tool, more for listening than recording.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
None of these all-in-one mics really excel at sound. If I could get one that could sound better than my Sanken, I would probably use it exclusively, but I still want the option to be able to plug my choice of lavs into it, or even a boom if I have to make the boom wireless. So my guess is, over and above all that, I agree with Nigel, a wired connection is always the best.
Go, Bill.
Yeah, we've had a lot of action over the last 5 years in terms of wireless at the low end, and that's great. It's better than it used to be, but still that industry in general leveraged the fact that new chips and new possibilities were there to make inexpensive, really good, but not superb wireless possible. I'm going to switch to these kind of things for my mission-critical audio when places like Broadway, who use wireless and live and die by it, move into these kind of systems. Generally, they do not. You will find the same names, Lectrosonics, Sony, the big guns, Zaxcom in the digital space, the big guns who have been there for 20 or 30 years, making sure that everything is absolutely professional and works in mission-critical systems where you just cannot lose track of your audio. When they get there, I'll dive all in.
I got lost in my screen. So go, Courtney.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever get there, Bill, because almost all of those ones that you mentioned there are in the 2.4 gigahertz transmission range, which is the unlicensed frequency range available. Most of the other professional, the Lectrosonics and the Zaxcoms and all the professional wireless mics are up in the UHF area, and they're licensed. Or they should be licensed. They are covered by a licensed area, and you should obtain a license for them. The problem with all of these is if you're going to use them in a professional situation, for YouTubers, they're great. You can just clip them on your shirt. You can plug external microphones into them, including your COS 11s if you want to, Mitch. On all of them, but you probably can't plug a 48 volt Phantom microphone into it because they only provide about 5 volts bias for an electret condenser to plug into them. The other thing is because they're 2.4 gigahertz, they don't transmit through bodies which are full of water very easily. So if you want to hide the microphone, put the transmitter on the back of the actor, it has to be pretty much line of sight. You're going to get a lot of dropouts unless your receiver is very close or in back of the actor within line of sight of that transmitter. If you're going to hide the transmitter and put a lav, let's say, taped to their chest, it's going to be problematic. So, they have their limitations. I don't think the preamps are near as good as they are in the professional ones, but, these things cost $150 or $170 for a pair of them, and you'd be paying about $6,000 for a pair of professional Electros. Or
I don't think the Electros are quite that expensive, but they are. I think they're $3,000 or $4,000.
Well, if you got two transmitters and two receivers, they would.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think that they would not replace using Lectros for me. So that would they would not replace that when I'm using those. They're usually in a pretty contested environment, or it just absolutely has to work. And 2.4 is not something you use when it absolutely has to work. Now, as a convenient, I'm going to probably get these DJIs. I had heard that I should wait, so I've been waiting for these. So anyway, exactly. So I put them off because I knew that they were coming, and so I will. But I think that having them in my bag as a solution that I can just throw out and throw two transmitters onto somebody that I want to do a walk and talk or do whatever, I think is a really great. I want to tie this to my phone. If we're going to start. I'm going to pull out a live view and I'm going to put all this stuff together. I'm probably now going to be moving, transitioning to Lectrosonics and making sure that I have the highest quality for those types of things. But for smaller, more personal stuff, and I think that there's a place for both of those things, and I'll probably use them in both, different things. I don't want to set up a whole Lectro system to tie into my phone if I'm trying to do something that's real quick or a quick interview. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you use it and how important it is and how critical it is for reliability. If you're doing once in a lifetime interview, you're trying to catch somebody on the street and it's like, a very important person. You're never going to get that person again. I wouldn't recommend trying to use one of these because the reliability isn't there. That said, The Hollylands are kind of interesting. The microphones are much smaller. There are these buttons here, and it comes in a couple of different formats. You can get it as a receiver, as a sort of a belt pack or something you can clip on your camera, or with Lightning or USB connectors. And one of the things that I found interesting was they have a magnetic attachment option. So, which makes it, turtlenecks and sweaters are always really, really difficult to put a microphone on. So that's a really nice feature. Kind of harkens back to the pin mic from many years ago. Also, after hearing you talk about Saramonic yesterday, I went and looked those up. Saramonic has a similar system that does actually work in the 500 meg band. So it's not 2.4.
Next question.
Michael Patria in Warsaw, Poland says, have you recently seen a podcast studio that impressed you in terms of design? Another QR code question.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, the Chris Williamson Modern Wisdom podcast, when he shoots from his Austin studio, I really like the look of that. I think one of the things I like about it is, A, he's doing it in a very cinematographic look and feel, but B, it's uncluttered. I'm now starting to look, most podcasts I listen to, I don't watch. But when I watch them and I find the sets very cluttered, I find it distracting. And I think we're starting to see a clearing out of the clutter and a focus on the conversation.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll say if this is true, the way it is portrayed here, Blackmagic on their Ultimate page, if you could see this, they used to have actually one of those web pages that actually changes as you're scrolling, that showed this a little bit more dynamically. But if the way they portray this podcast set on green screen and then what you're seeing below it in terms of what it ultimately looks like, I mean, geez, you can design your set however you want. Alex can comment, how realistic this actually works out to be to look like it does in those photos.
Green screen is really hard. Like, I'll just say, as someone who wrote green screen, I didn't write them, but I designed green screen plugins. I've done thousands and thousands of hours of green screen. I would not do a podcast with green screen. And the reason for that is mostly it's moving the cameras. So you want to readjust the cameras. Well, that background has to move with it. And each background has to have its own key and its own background. So it's easy to think about it as, oh, yeah, we'll just throw a green screen back there. Now we control the set. But now you've tied yourself into, I need an Ultimate for every one of those cameras. I need to be able to key that out. And I need to be able to have an Unreal Engine or something that's going to move that background and blur that background depending on where my camera is. So now to do it well, otherwise it just looks hacky.
Now,
so
I
if you
thought
really
I actually read, sorry, and tell me if this is true or not. I thought I read that it has a little bit of intelligence to do exactly what you're talking about.
Not really.
That was
not really.
No, okay.
So what you need is you need to be able to now take the data that now things like a Panasonic 150 has telemetry, and Sony's working on that as well. So that telemetry data goes back into Unreal. Unreal can then move and handle depth of field and everything else based on that. But you don't really, and again, some people will do it without all of that, and then it just looks dorky. Like it just looks, like if you don't do it well, people won't notice, but they'll feel like something's wrong. Your lower brain is much smarter than your upper brain. A lot of times your upper brain will go, well, that looks okay. It's kind of, but your lower brain's like, wow, something's wrong there. I don't know what it is, but I'm not smart enough to understand what it is, but there's something wrong. And that bothers you as a viewer. So go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, if money is no object, I think Conan O'Brien Needs a Friends podcast. This is a look at their setup. So you can see they're seated around a round table. And they all have the Shure underslungs on nice arms that go in front of each guest or host. And they shoot video of it as well. And it's got a nice video monitor at the end. If they have to talk about something they saw on the internet or something, they can refer to that. And they got pretty clean singles of the guest and the host. So I think if you have unlimited money from doing years of network television,
Well, even
go for it. And that's a
even
good
with
layout, I think.
even without unlimited money, the one thing I would say that I would change from that is that we moved into circular tables a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago when we were doing podcasts, because everyone can just look. And if you undersling the mic like what you see here, you can see everyone really clearly. The cameras have a pretty good shot, and like like they have there, but they have a long table, which I wouldn't do. Like I know a lot of people in podcasts.
It allows them to do separation between the two people, so you can get a shot between them.
Well, the main thing is that what we do is put them in a round, and then we shoot the gaps. So we shoot gaps between them, especially if you have an odd number of people. You can adjust it back and forth, but if you have an odd number of people, you can shoot the gaps perfectly. So you get a perfect head up. Head and shoulder for every person. With even, it gets a little bit more complicated. But with an odd number of people, you'll always have, you have a round table, and I've got this person, and this person. I always have a gap to shoot the folks directly. So anytime, and any odd number will give me that gap. And so that's that is a great solution, and it's what we use for the Final Cut user group, Pixel Core. If you go back and look at those, and those are great head and shoulder shots. And I think it's the best way to record a podcast if you're going to put everybody in the room. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll just add and point out to emphasize that we're talking about visual design. Audio acoustics, of course, is something to keep in mind and remember that sometimes the aesthetics can dictate good or bad acoustics. Like that Blackmagic virtual set, it looks like a warm set, but it's in this concrete bunker with seemingly no attention whatsoever to audio.
The Blackmagic photos are always kind of they deserve their own teardowns.
So I just say keep that in mind of all the aesthetic decisions that you're thinking about what you're doing to the acoustics of the room.
And everyone is so well lit. Just they have a very specific, like almost Jill Greenberg lighting. Anyway, next question.
Next one comes to us from Mitchell Hill here on the panel from Wilmington, Delaware. The new Sony FX-3 and FX-30 firmware update due this September will include shutter angle and 709 tone support and SRT, RTMP, RTMPS for live streaming. What do you think?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I know I'm the professed Sony fanboy here, and you may not have an FX3 or an FX30, but there are a lot more people on office hours that have it. Here's the deal. I like it's convenient that the shutter angle is going to be there. I had to do a little investigation of what 709 tone is, and pre-show I was advised that is an adjustment in the 709 space that works with HDR. So that might be a welcome thing. And all the other streaming stuff, I really question whether or not the Sony's up to that task because the CPU in it really is kind of pokey. So that might be a problem. Other than that, I'm using version 2 on my FX3 right now. There is a version 3 out. I guess this will be version 4. So, Sony recognizes the importance of these particular camera groups as for using it for how we're using it. So I think that their response in their updates are making sense.
Yeah, none of that really moved. I mean, I have an FX30. I like it. None of those would move the dial for me. I think they're good. They're good progressions, but I don't think that they're necessarily. I would never do an SRT out of a Sony camera. I just don't think that they have the. Especially like I took an old camera that was designed not for that, and then I added it to it. I don't think that's a good idea. Like, I mean, the Blackmagic ones that are doing that, they were built for that. Like that, and not all of them do it. And that seems like a pretty scary option.
Yeah, it'll bring it right to its knees.
Given that I have enough problems with my Sony cameras just maintaining heat, staying on when it gets warm, I'm not sure that I would want them to try to do more. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. Has anyone ever tried Accentized dxRevive for restoring dialogue? I tried it, and it was surprisingly effective with iPhone-recorded voice memos.
And go, Jeff.
I was waiting to see if anyone else was going to jump in with direct hands-on. I'll just point out Curtis Judd on YouTube did a review of this a couple months ago, and there is a lot of overlap with the Revive and this dialogue enhance. If I recall, he liked it, and what he said ultimately was, it is really more tailored for the video editor who has been handed not great audio and just has to deal with fixing that audio. It's like the all-in-one, just handle the audio. But keep in mind also, and I know you know this, Douglas, it's restorative, meaning you've already failed in capturing good audio. That should be the goal. But as far as recovering bad audio, both of those are good. And the dialogue is far less expensive, so you can maybe see if the overlap is sufficient for what you might need.
Good, Bill.
Yeah, restoring dialogue, funny sort of thing. Because I am now doing a good little bit of audio book work, I will tell you that I have changed how I approach and think about performance to a microphone a lot. Most of my career has been in announcing, so I was full voice and I had a good presentation and I could articulate words fine. 1,000 different microphones worked for me, and they worked just fine. I didn't care if you put an SM57 in front of me or a Sennheiser or anything else. I could always make it work and sound pretty darn good. In the audiobook thing, this is all changed. And for me now, nuance is kind of my stock in trade. A whispering character, somebody who has to feel emotionally upset. You want more catch, more presence. The microphone needs to be better to get all that nuance in there. So I think it's important still to get the right mic.
Next question.
Next question goes to Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. What is the best practice for using hardware that no longer has supported firmware updates? Keep using it until it no longer works, or start looking for new gear. Thanks.
Good, Marty.
Well, I guess it depends on whether we're talking about a computer, a camera, a recorder, what kind of device it is, and if firmware updates are important for functionality or security or compatibility with other equipment. If what you're using does what you need it to do and will continue to do exactly what you need it to do, then by all means, you can continue using it. But at the same time, I would also start thinking about replacing it, because at some point it's not going to be fulfilling your needs.
Go, Jeff.
I'll just say quickly, I'm always more concerned with software support, depending on what it uses, whether it's drivers or actual software you need to use that thing. That's when I start to get nervous, when that is no longer updated. But regardless, always have a plan B.
Good, Courtney.
Unless it has a fatal bug, and as long as it's still working, go with it and use it as long as you can.
Next question.
Kyle Herman in Chicago, Illinois. I think I noticed on recent Gray Matters that you were able to animate your picture-in-picture to adjust size and placement. Is there a way to create multiple animations within a single layer?
And the answer is yes. I'll show you what these layers actually look like here. So in here, you'll see that there is I have multiple layers here. And so each one of these layers that are there, and actually I have two layers that are interacting with each other. So I've given them their own names in that layer section. And then what I can do is, you'll notice that as I click on, so you'll see one here that's there. When I click on two up, it animates to them. But what I'm doing is it's jumping between those layers there. So that is that is what I can actually end up adding there. It's actually something that I didn't know that was possible, but I was able to over time figure that out here. So anyway, and you can add, I believe it's here, that I can add another layer, but I have to admit it was brand new for me, and I figured it out with Oliver. He did a lab. We're going to do another workshop soon, because I have a bunch of updates that I want to try to get done. And so stay tuned for that workshop, and we'll manage it. But yeah, you can add multiple variants to that layer, so that it's able to animate between those things. And so I'm not cutting between layers. I'm actually going from one layer to another, or one layer variant to another. And I can automate those by setting those in my layer sets. Next question.
Mikkel Patria, Warsaw, Poland, back again with, what is the best way to publish podcast for Spotify and Apple? Is using a service like Acast a good solution? Are there any tools that allow you to gain a larger group?
The tools themselves aren't going to actually get a larger listenership. We use CacheFly for the Michael Krasny graymatter.show, but you can also other ones that are a little bit. Acast is another one. Another one that I would recommend looking at is Libsyn. Libsyn has been around forever, and they have a lot of tools that are all kind of pre-built for you to do that as well. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. He says, Fox Sports has built a MAMM, a Media Asset Manager system, using Google Cloud and extensive artificial intelligence machine learning in the back end, classifying, detecting plays, and so forth. Could you see large language models used as a front end to production applications in the future?
Yeah, 100%. They're already getting used. People are working on this right now. This is a big piece of the business, is being able to look at all this data. In fact, we're going to have some guests on. They're going to talk about that, where they're using AI to we have a guest coming up soon that is going maybe next week or the week after. You're going to be able to analyze all that data coming into the cloud and then tag everything. So put all the metadata in for you about everything it sees in that frame. It's something that you would typically do yourself or have an assistant editor do, but it's going to be able to do it automatically using AI. And that's going to be really powerful for editors, especially documentary editors with tons and tons of footage. I'm looking for this piece, or I'm looking for that. And it's going to be interesting. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Samsung's Galaxy Unpacked event goes live on Samsung.com after office hours at 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Central. Notably... Yeah, what, Pacific and Central? Probably AI for camera and photo editing will be featured. Will you watch and or buy the new S24?
And this is 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, about 20% of all the iPhone users have come from Android, and about 10% of all the Android users have come from iPhone. The reason Android users switch is the experience. The reason that iPhones user switch is the costs. I think if you think that in mind, then what Samsung and Android and all those teams have to do is to shore up their base. And I suspect, regardless of what they tell you, most of this will be about protecting the install base. It'll get people to stop moving off their platform. I'm not an Android user. I'm not going to switch. I don't care how good the camera is. My life is too locked into an ecosystem to make that change, so I won't watch.
And for the first time, it was announced this week, for the first time since 2010, Apple actually sold more phones than Samsung. and Samsung had taken that from Nokia. So Samsung had been the ruler of the world for top of the heap until the last quarter. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, Apple has a lot less versions than Samsung does. I like my Samsung phone. I'll be watching, but will I buy? Probably not. There's been a lot of leaked pictures, and you notice the sharp corners, which is something I really don't like. The camera supposedly a lot better. We'll see.
Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida says Midjourney announces AI text to video will be released soon. Anyone have any more info on this?
Go ahead, Bill.
I don't have specifically more info, but I'm really curious. And what I'm curious about more than anything else is, in the same way, I kind of feel that Midjourney generated photos all end up with a certain look to them, with the exception of what Alex has done, doing a white background like in the style of Pixar. Those look different than the standard Midjourney kind of hyper-realistic background. If they can combine both of them so that there's enough variety in the output of Midjourney in terms of its video creation, then I'm really interested. If it ends up looking like, oh, that's Midjourney video, I'm not as interested, because I kind of still have the feeling that everybody can do that, so there's nothing really special about it. It's fabulous, but it's all fabulous in the same area. I'm hoping for difference.
I actually find that I can do a lot of different styles inside of Midjourney if I just do in the style of. I'm doing something. I want you to do this. If you leave it to itself, it does a lot of things that look fairly similar to what a lot of other people are doing. But if you actually tell it you want to go towards a certain style, you usually can get something that looks pretty good. I use it mostly for previs. I don't look at it as something I'm going to use for a final shot. I just don't have enough explicit control over it yet to be able to do that. So as a demo of like, hey, we're going to do this, and then the camera's going to do this, and then we're going to see this and everything else, and being able to do that inside of Midjourney will be profound. I definitely think that if it's remotely good and it gives me 15 seconds of something or 10 seconds of something moving at anywhere near the quality of maybe Midjourney 3.0, I'd be super happy with what I got out of it. And so a lot of people are already, there's already tools out there that take your Midjourney still and turn them into video. Obviously, Midjourney doesn't want to give that space up. So I think that, and they'll do better. They won't be flickering and everything else because they still have the seed that it took to create it. So we should see some pretty interesting, the two places that I'd love to see more from Midjourney is video and 3D. So being able to create 3D objects, and I think that both of those things are on their way. So we just have to remember that with AI right now, we're still in the Model T phase. That's where, if you think about where our cars are right now, we're in the Model T phase, and it'll take us another 10 years to get to where these are really. But I use I use Midjourney all the time, both for entertainment as well as to little demos and little examples, and mostly, again, not stuff that I'm using for work, but things that I use them for work because I put them in my presentations. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
And I'll just point out, this is another area where Adobe is going to be giving them a run for their money. This is, they have that deep catalog of video and then having done audio transcription for a while, they have that correlation. So it's going to be good competition.
It is. I think that Adobe's smaller sample size, the Midjourney, Adobe
for
is
video?
For a little. No, I'm just saying but Adobe's basing it on a much smaller sample than Midjourney because they want to keep it legal, so and manageable, and so that limits the quality of the image. I find that just even with the stills, with the 2D, the generative stuff that's within Photoshop, it's great for little fixes. I would never have it generate anything it's not put a bird here. Almost never really works. And definitely I don't have Photoshop try to build whole images. I use it for I find the generative fill works extremely well for small fixes. Take this out, move this over, do those things. It works really, really great, and I use it all the time to fix things in Midjourney. But I don't. I wouldn't want it to develop. I haven't seen it do a whole image very well. So so there's a lot of challenges, and it's because they're limiting themselves to their own library, and Midjourney's not. And Midjourney has a lot more people using it, and so I think that's the challenge. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. Alex, I know you've worked in the White House. What is it like working in other similar facilities like the UN building, or is it similar?
They're similar in the sense that there's a lot of you have to think about. So whether it's UN or EU or many other government agencies or government facilities that we've worked in, security is a big deal. You have to have logistics are something you have to think about all the time. It's not just I'm going to load in, and you can't be casual about it. There's a lot of meetings ahead of time. There's a lot of you have to know who your team is going to be and make sure that they're all approved, and there's oftentimes background checks, and then you want to have walkthroughs because some of these facilities, like the EU in Brussels, is very advanced. The UN is the last time we were there was not as advanced as far as how the wiring and everything. A lot of times, what happened was they updated very effectively years ago, and it's just hard to get that money again to do it again. And so that sometimes is a challenge as you start to work through it. So it really depends on when was it updated, where do you have to go. Getting from one room to another can be either very easy or very difficult, depending on when those were updated. There's a lot, and the problem with all government locations is that there's a lot of red tape to doing anything there, and so it takes a long time for them to update things. And so that's one of the big challenges there. But some of the facilities, if they're using them a lot, like the State Department has a really great setup because they're broadcasting out of that all the time, and so they've got a great team that does it all the time. They have it's pretty modern, and so those are the kind of things. It just depends on how often they're using it and what they're using it for. Are they just kind of sending things out, or are they doing production? Again, EU is another example of they've got a series of production units next door. They've got a private contractor that manages a lot of that. That does it really well, and then they've got a pretty modern setup. So it just depends on what they're doing. Next question.
Paul Wallace at Starling Plaza, Texas says the large action model running on the $199 R1 is the cornerstone of Rabbit OS. Large action model is a foundational model that understands human interactions on computers. With LAM, Rabbit OS understands what you say and gets things done. How does this work, and is it worth $199 US?
Go ahead, Harshid.
No, and they didn't go by universal design for accessibility. We tried to research it on a podcast I recently did for This Week in Accessibility, and again, no information, and privacy, I think, is a little bit more worth than $199.
And we're going to be jumping into mic offs here in just a second. But a quick reminder that we've got a couple things that are coming up in the next couple days. We have tomorrow we're going to have John Ross. John Ross is one of the leaders in surround sound design for film, and he's going to be joining us to answer your questions, talk about surround, talk about what he does, talk about a studio. And so he's going to be on tomorrow. On Friday, we're going to talk about understanding the Blackmagic cloud. So we're going to be talking through, what it does, how it works, and so on and so forth. Saturday, of course, is Q&A. So this is general question and answer. And we also do a lot of testing. So if you want to see us fiddling with things, some things won't always work, but we do them on Saturday there. And Sunday is introspection. It's a place where you can ask questions about what we're doing and why we're doing them. And complaints and comments and questions are all what we deal with. On Sunday, we don't broadcast that, so you don't see it. Quick reminder that Colleen Henry will be joining me tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for a general fireside chat that you're all invited to. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the second hour. Now, this could be a little messy as we get this set up, but I realized before it, I looked down and I was like, I didn't get an XLR cable. So I might need to let everyone vamp for just a second about how they choose mics while I go grab an XLR cable to start connecting this up. So, because I was going to plug it into this, I want to plug it in. I want to be able to go back and forth between this mic, and I just didn't get that quite.
That should be fun. I wonder if I should plug in the TLM 103 just to have a different mic so everybody can have a different mic today.
The main thing is that what I wanted to do is show different mics from one place with one voice, because the idea is it's hard to tell what is going on. Like it's easier if you have kind of a single point of reference. But Bill, I'll talk to you. I'll let you and anyone else that wants to talk here for a second while I go grab some stuff here.
Absolutely. We'll talk about mics in general and how, those of us who have been in the audio business or doing radio and things like that have run across hundreds of different mics over the course of the years. We all know they sound a little bit different. Some seem to be matched best to a particular person's voice. I've had mics that sounded great on me, and I'd give them to a female talent, for example, and they didn't sound anywhere near as right to me. And I know Marty's been doing this kind of work forever too, and has been an audio professional for years. So what is your thinking about how do you go about figuring out the right mic to use for the right person, Marty?
Well, you're right. Every person has particular characteristics of their voice. Certain parts of the frequency band of that voice is going to be accentuated. Everybody has resonances from their chest and their head. And when I'm looking for a microphone for a particular person in a particular room, I will look for a microphone that has frequency characteristics, is built with a tonality that complements that voice in that room. And so frequency response would be one of them. Every microphone has its own tailored voice or frequency response. And when you look at the charts for that microphone, you will see which frequencies are boosted just a little bit. That's often called a presence boost. And the low frequencies might have a dip somewhere to sort of minimize resonances. And also the polar pattern, which is, what angles will the microphone primarily pick up from, and which angles will it reject audio from. And we're talking naturally about a cardioid or supercardioid or hypercardioid type of microphone.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've run across that a ton myself, and we talk about that in voiceover in general. I mean, some people work in voice booths, try to eliminate all the exterior sound, but more and more I'm finding I'm in circumstances where I need to do VO work in offices or other places, or even just record dialogue and things like that. So the point Marty's making about the mic and its pickup pattern and how it reacts to the space around you, those are all critical factors. Alex is back. Alex, did you get things sorted?
All right, are you ready? So now one thing that I did is one thing that I changed is you might hear a little bit of noise from this mic. I turned all the noise assist off on this so that we could be clean of like this is the same space, because I can't put, the way I have it set up, I can't put noise assist on both of them. So anyway, so this is my core mic. My work mic is a Stellar X2. And so that's what I copied, shamelessly copied Courtney. So I shamelessly copied Courtney. I was like, oh, he sounds really good. And he's got a really good voice too. So I wasn't sure if it was really going to work, but it did. And so I'm going to grab a couple mics one at a time. I'm going to start with a Rode. This is the Rode NTG2. This is a shotgun mic. There might be a little handling. I really couldn't figure out a way to put other stands onto taking them on and off. So I'm just going to, you might hear a little handling noise. I'll try not to do that. And I'm going to switch over to the Rode. But here's this is a Stellar X2, and you can hear me talking through it. We are glad that Dauphin is so pleasant with us. His present in your pains we thank you for. And so now I'm going to turn it. I'm going to try to hit about the same levels as we go through it, and let me know if it sounds the same for all of you. But this is the Stellar X2, and next one is going to be the Rode.
We're not hearing you there.
Okay, so I can hear that, but you can't hear it. Hold on, that was just working. No, let me see if I can do this here. I just had this working, but I might have had a different setup here. Talk amongst yourself for a second.
Okay. I've switched for reasons I have no clue about to the Neumann TLM 103. This is the mic I use for most of my at-the-desk work these days. I am running it through a Universal Audio Apollo Solo, and it's got a Cedar plug-in on it. And every time I sit down, the first time I switch the mic, I wait for the Cedar to kick in. It takes maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds, and I listen to the background just disappear, and before I'm able to actually start my work.
You just switched to that mic, right? Is that right?
Correct. I just switched to the TLM 103.
And that's a great point about microphone, especially one of the questions about, what's good for Zoom, which live, as Alex has said, live is tough. And that mic is too good for Zoom, because as soon as you turn that on, we hear your room. You've talked about the acoustics, everything, all the stuff, what you've done to improve the acoustics of that room. And for your setup with the other mic, great. You put that notoriously difficult TLM 103 on there, and we hear the room. The acoustics have to really be spot on for a mic that good.
Yeah, you should hear this room without any of the noise reduction in it. You can hear gnats flying by. It is that sensitive, which is wonderful, as I was mentioning before, for nuance and performance, but not good at all if you're just trying to get a clean signal out and you don't want to deal with as much noise. The Sennheiser MKH416 works better. Yes, we can.
All right, so this is, okay, now we got that fixed. I changed the routing thing right before the show. Sorry about that. I thought I was making it better, and I was making it worse. So this is the Rode NTG2. This is a shotgun mic, and I can even take this off just so you can hear the difference there. I don't think it makes that much of a difference there, but you can. So this is the shotgun mic. So you can hear it there. To me, and to my ear, it doesn't have the same presence that the Stellar has. But we use this a lot. We've used this a lot for this type of thing. Let's see. We can open up discussion if we see anything else from the folks listening. Let me see if I can pop that open real quick. So this is what the NTG2 sounds like. and I'll switch back to the Stellar standby. And this is what the Stellar sounds like. And they're both about the same. They're hitting about the same level. At least that's what it looks like there on the WLM. So that's the difference between those two mics at roughly the same level coming out. So obviously, I think that if I choose now, I can move further away too. I'm hitting that one pretty close. So if I move that shotgun further away and turn it up, so now I'm going to turn that up. So you get a little bit more presence actually when it's further away than when it's closer. So that sounds probably at that distance sounds a little bit better than what we had before. Now, the one thing that you'll start to hear as I move that away is you're starting to hear my room, right? So as that microphone changes distance away, you're starting to hear a little bit more of the room. But I will say that it feels like I have a lot more presence than I had a second ago when it was a lot closer and turned down. So that's my 2 cents there. And I'm going to let the panelists, rather than me trying to select it because I'm moving a lot of things, just put your 2 cents in. Just talk over each other if you need to. Any other comments as people listen to that?
I heard the exact same thing you just mentioned right away, which was once you moved it a little bit further away, it actually felt more present. And at least at that initial distance, no additional room presence in that mic at that medium distance.
Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it in my ears. I can hear more of the room. But go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, so the presence is increased presence is due to the lack of the proximity effect. When you hold the microphone closer, the bass response actually goes up, and that's a characteristic of pretty much any cardioid microphone. So backing it off decreases the bass, and then the upper mid frequencies are then allowed to come through without being masked by the lower frequencies. Right. The other difference that I'm hearing is that your large diaphragm microphone has more of a dynamic range to it. It sounds more open, more natural, whereas the shotgun microphone sort of sounds a little strangled is a term that I use for some characteristics.
Yeah, the way that I would put it would be if you're it would have been fine, in a movie. Right. If there was background noise,
effects and so on and so forth, and again, and the interesting thing is the reason it's so important to go back to the other mic is, I think if I joined a show and I sounded like this, I think people would think it sounded fine. Like it's not. There's nothing. They wouldn't. It's the fact that we're comparing it to my daily driver that we kind of hear the difference between those two and why I necessarily chose that mic. For that operation. You were going to say something, Courtney?
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of shotgun mics, like the Rode and like the 416s, the Sennheisers, they use the interference tube, have a little bit of a bump up at around 6,000 cycles because it's designed to poke through wind gags, to poke through a windscreen that you're going to put on it to use outdoors. And so they have a little bit of a boost because they're designed for dialogue, pulling dialogue out of surrounding sounds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's the NT2, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that down and turn up my. This is the Stellar again, so you can kind of hear that as a comparison. And now what I'm going to do is swap that out. And
now, if I'm not mistaken, and Alex, Marty, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but just adding that little bit of a distance starts to allow the fins to do their work on that shotgun mic, because now we're getting a little bit of a difference in time between the front and the fins. The
hard part is still, you still hear that, you start hearing the room. That's when people say, what kind of mic should I use? I'm always like, what room do you have? Like, it's not just as easy. Now, this is the TLM 102. This is the one step below what Bill has. So when I say one step below, they look identical, except Bill's is twice as expensive as mine. so this is the 102. So I'm going to turn down. This is what I was using for quite some time. And then I swapped out for the Stellar. This is about a $600 mic, $650, something in that range. The Stellar is about a $200 mic. So I'll put it kind of to this side here and turn the Stellar down. And then this is the now you're listening to the Neumann. which now listening to it, I kind of like. Like it's a. I haven't listened to it for a long time, and it's a pretty good mic there as far as that sound goes. So that's this is the about the same distance, just off to the other side. This is the Neumann. The Neumann. This is a TLM 102, and this is the Stellar, which now sounds a little harsher, I guess is what I would say, than the Neumann.
I would prefer you on that Neumann. Yeah,
it's funny.
Neumann is adding a bit more body to your voice.
Yeah,
lower end commanding.
What happens when you pay more money
presence.
for it? Yeah,
Let's point out everything you've done to that room.
Yeah, the room is very different. Like, so I will say that the room is a different. This is a different room than the last time I tested these together. Yeah, we're going to say something, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to say that Howard Stern uses that microphone, and you can see he likes the proximity effect because he gets right in.
Yeah, he gets right up to it. So if I do that,
if I'm not mistaken,
yeah, he does 103.
103, yeah, right.
He's not slumming. He's not slumming it like I am.
Yeah. You have a 102. So I'm sorry.
I have a 102. Anyway, so let me. Bill's got a 103. Anyway, so here's the. I'll do the proximity effect there. So here we have. Now this is at a regular distance. Now what Howard Stern likes to do is do this. He's like talking right up to it. He's like, "So we're going to play that live Everlong for us again," like that. So anyway, but at a normal distance, you'll see that it's a pretty. I will say that even though I use the Stellar for the show all the time, I use the Neumann for my voiceovers, and I always have. Like I've been using this thing for so long. And I just know it. So I use it. So anyway, that's the Neumann. Now I'm going to switch out again. Stand by.
Sounds like it's maybe time for a little bit of a switcheroo for that daily driver. Man, that in that room with all the work you've done there, that Neumann sounds really good. I'd still love, by the way, real quick, if Marty, anyone wants to talk about or knows, the argument constantly with Howard Stern and that TLM 103 is he's constantly, he moves the arm by grabbing the mic and moving it, and
takes it
we never hear any of the sound of him doing that, and we never hear plosives, mouth sounds, anything. And yet it's clear he's using that mic. People say, no, he's not. He's using a lapel mic. It's clear he's on that mic.
You would never hear it. It would never sound like that through a lapel mic.
I want to know what magic they're doing to remove all the bad stuff from us hearing that.
A lot of processing. This one we tested earlier. I don't think we liked it as much, but I'm going to put it back in. This is the Chinese knockoff of the U87. It's very expensive.
Under $3,000 U87.
This one's $27. $27. So anyway, so
you should have done the drama of telling us that it is a U87 first, and then when we all say how magical it is, you then go reveal
$27. How much would you pay for this? All right, here we go. So this is the switch over here. Stand by. So here is the. You can hear the noise. So that's the big thing. It sounds very thin. It's a lot of self noise. We're doing the exact same thing we were doing before. So I think that it's a
very narrow bandwidth. No low end at all.
So at $27, it does not sound like a U87. Just in case you're wondering. So if you see these things on Temu, no, they're not. They're not the same.
They're prop microphones there. If you want to look like, for a movie or
they
something,
look like
you don't want to
exactly.
spend money for props.
So let me let's see here. JJ lent me a mic, which I had not used. So JJ, thank you. I need to get this back to you. When I was looking through the mics, when I was looking through the mics, I realized I have a JJ mic. JJ built this mic. So this is it. I don't know if it needs check. Let's see here. Give me 1 second here. So this is a mic that JJ built. I don't know what it's called other than we're just going to call it the JJ mic.
That didn't change tenor when you moved it way away. Are you sure you're on that?
No. This is it right here.
Oh.
I might be on the back. So the logo is on the back end. The logo is outward facing. So this is the thing.
Backwards.
I once did that. The first time I put that Neumann on the first time I put the Neumann on, I did a whole Mac break like this, and I couldn't figure. I had to just kind of I got really close to it because I was like, what is going on with this mic? I remember it being so much better. And so anyway, this is the JJ mic. We'll call it the JJ mic here. So and this one actually sounds pretty good. This is the first time I put it on. It was sitting there. I'd put it away so that I could do a test with it, and then it sounds quite nice. This is a very nice sounding mic.
Whose capsule did he use? It does sound nice.
I'm not sure. It was a kit mic that JJ had handed me a long time ago. JJ, I'm really sorry. I'll get this back to you. But it was a kit mic, and I'll turn it down just a little bit so it's kind of fair there. I think I was going a little bit loud on it. But this was a very nice sounding mic. And JJ, of course, is like, I'm sure if he's watching, he's like, oh, it's a kit built it from a kit at microphoneparts.com. So there's a kit for microphone. How much? And JJ, if you can throw it in, how much did this cost you in both money and time? Let us know how much this cost you in money and time to make this actually work. So anyway, so this is the JJ mic. And we'll try to get you a better brand here in a second. $280. So it took them 2 days to build. $280. Really nice sounding mic. It
has a lot of bottom end, a lot of low mid. It does not have a lot of articulation up in the T's and the S's. It's got enough. You can hear clearly what you're saying, but it's not at all, in my ears, as sharp as the Neumann or some of the other mics.
Yeah, it's a really nice sounding mic, I have to say. And so this is the JJ mic, or the microphoneparts.com. They're in Petaluma, which means there's a second. Now, JJ will tell you, JJ said it has a lot of self noise. I don't hear it. Like, I don't hear a lot of self noise here. So I don't know. Maybe that was an interface. I don't hear a dramatic increase in. There's a little bit of noise in the room because of a pump and a thing, but it's not. I don't hear a ton of noise that's, don't touch it with your hand. I'm touching it with my hand right now, but if I scrape it, you can't. Don't touch it with your hand, and then there's self-noise. No. Oh, I'm acting as a ground. I'm now holding the cable. I don't hear a buzz, so I don't, I'm holding the cable by the rubber part, so I don't think I'm grounding it anymore. And so that's interesting. Maybe I fixed it for cable by holding on to it, JJ. Just anyway, so there. This is it. I'll go back to the Stellar. Stand by. And now I'm back to the Stellar, which may feel a little more natural to me, but I think that this is a really impressive mic. We should get those guys on the show and talk about it.
Yeah, I think it uses a similar capsule to the Stellar, the K47 size capsule, similar to the U47 capsule.
So that's the JJ mic, or micparts.com.
Yeah, I think it's great that you can do a DIY product that good.
Yeah. One project.
As a project. And I think that's a really worthwhile project for anybody who wants to really understand what goes into a microphone, how it works, and then you can potentially do some modifications to it. Like, I'm not crazy about the voicing on that microphone. I think it would stand well on its own if you weren't comparing it to something else like we are. It's got a lot of presence to it. I think it would cut through, certainly on a teleconference like Zoom. But it doesn't have the body that either the Stellar or the Neumann have. And of course, there's a considerable difference in price there as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's it's a little more than the Stellar, a little less than half of the Neumann. So now I'm going to take this is where this all began, right? This is the PodMic USB. This is from Rode. Now I'm going to use the XLR output as opposed to the USB output. And so I have this here, and now I'm going to switch over. This is the Stellar X2 that you're listening to right now, and this is the Rode. And I will come back to the fact that we noticed this before, is that let's see if I can fix this a little bit more. The
Rode's a dynamic, isn't it?
It's a dynamic, yeah. Hold on. So now it's let's see now. Let's see how loud it is there. I'm going to bring that down a little bit. There's, the gain is much different. Obviously, I'm gaining up instead of -40. I'm at negative 65. On this to get to this level here. Thinner. I guess I would say it's thinner. Even with, we had a gain staging problem. That's why I wanted to make sure these are plugged directly into the mix pre. Still a lot of self noise. Like, I don't think this is a keeper. I think that this was people requesting this was why I ordered it. But I don't think it stands up, on its own.
Self noise at that point is probably coming from your mic preamp because you've got it cranked up so high to get a level.
Well, I mean, but you need to crank it up or you can't hear it.
Right.
Like, it's
There's
not
no active circuitry coming from the mic. Though. Yeah.
And I will say that the other issue is that it is that's true, but you do have to get it to that point as far as sensitivity goes. And I would also say that now if I bring it down, I'm trying to get it down to where I'm hitting relatively close to negative 20, negative 22, negative 24. So this is the noise is a little bit better, but it's still one of the noisier mics that we've tested. And so I think that's the challenge there. All right.
So it's kind of peaky in the voice range of 4,000, 6,000 in that area, and less low end and high end as well.
Yeah. So
what about we talked about, is this maybe a kit mic to send out to guests, and you think it's not even at the threshold to be good?
It's also like twice as heavy as the MV7. Let me grab the MV7. So we'll go to the MV7 next. But it's also twice as heavy as the MV7, which if we're sending out mics, we are sensitive to how much the FedEx is going to cost when we do it. So it being really heavy is not necessarily a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from this to the Shure, and I'm going to not talk in between them. It's hard for me to swap the Shure. Yeah, so just stand by.
Yeah, before you unplug it, or maybe I missed you, it'd be interesting to know if I forget if that one supposedly has internal shock mount, but it'd be interesting to see how sensitive it is to little bumps.
Yeah, it's got its own there. Now this is the MV7. And so what I will say is that I find the MV7 to be a bit more present. Also, I didn't change anything. So this is exactly the same gain, and you do have to gain that up a little bit as well. So same gain settings. This is also a dynamic mic. I think it's cleaner. It is a little bit brighter. I probably would, if this is good for me. I haven't listened to the two of them next to each other until right now. And I would say that I would still pick the MV7 over top of the pod mic based on this test. Yeah, so it's good. It's good test. That's what started all this whole mess, was comparing these two. Okay, stand by. Hold on one second.
So there's a lot of differences between dynamic microphones and cardioid or electret condenser microphones. In condenser microphones, there is active electronics. There is an amplifier, and the frequency response can be tailored within that amplifier. With a dynamic microphone, the voice coil is directly connected to the output connector, so there's no active electronics. And the self-noise that we're talking about is not actually coming from the microphone, but from the preamp that it's connected to.
Yeah, but it's what I will say is that the preamp in the mix in the USB in the Mix Pre 3, the preamp is so quiet that if that's adding noise, you're not going to get a better solution in most places. Like that's 100, the noise floor is like a negative 128 or something like that on these Cashmere preamps. And so I would say that if I'm getting noise out of a mix, if I'm turning it up to a point where I'm getting noise out of the Mix Pre 3, it's not going to get better with most other things. Like I don't know of that many other preamps that are going to be quieter than that one. So that we're giving it kind of the best option there. Now this is going to the old-fashioned SM58 just so we can clean our palette. So we know what, this is not we all know what this one sounds like, but we're going to throw it in here. So stand by.
This is a little slice of ginger.
A slice of ginger here. So this is the SM58. This is the tried and true, mic. Typically, we're going to get a little closer to it because now, and again, what you will notice is the high end is missing. That's been kind of a typical thing for an SM58. as you use it there. But it is also while the high end is missing, the off-axis rejection is incredible. So using this in loud environments is something that we've used for a long time. So anyway, that gives you a sense of what an SM58 sounds like and compared to the other things that we've been testing here. I'm going to turn that one down.
Also, since the SM58 is designed a lot of time for vocal use for singers, etc., they're using
designed to be yelled into.
Close to their mic and reject a lot of noise coming from amplifiers on the stage, but also it's less sensitive to mouth clicks and stuff because it's used so close. So that's why it has a little less high frequency.
And now this really hear the proximity effect on that microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the PR40. This is the Heil PR40. So stand by. So now this is the Heil PR40, and it sounds very radio. So it's a very radio sounding mic. It has got a lot of presence to it. It is. I have it, set up. I brought it down just a little bit from the SM58, but this gives you about the size. Now a lot of times we're sitting pretty hard. I end up sitting pretty close to it. It also has a lot of off-axis rejection. So if you get further away, it will start to drop off quickly. So the advantage of it is that it oftentimes is it's good in a noisier, more studio environment than what you have there. But again, you can kind of hear it feel a little more constrained than what we've been hearing with some of the other mics. And again, without this room, it's problematic because I have blankets. Anything you can't see right now, there's a blanket that's allowing me to use the Stellar and the TLM 102 and everything else. Those mics will not work. If this room didn't have blankets everywhere, those mics wouldn't even be acceptable. So you have to also think about where those, where the mic is going to be used. If it's a lot of hard surfaces, something like this will make a big difference. I do hear a lot more sibilance in this mic than I've heard in other ones as well. So I'm going to tone this down and get another one.
It's worth pointing out also that, a lot of the differences that we're hearing, whether someone thinks it's maybe better or worse for them, a lot of that can simply be fixed with a little bit of EQ, which can go out over your live feed. And a lot of that is just a simple enough difference. Even if there's one is a little bit more sensitive on the higher end, picking up a little bit more sibilance, a lot of that can be just EQ'd out.
Yeah, but we're trying to figure out we're trying to figure out how we get something that in the raw input. Now, this is one that was just suggested, and hopefully it'll just work out of the gate. So this one is the Hype mic. We were just talking about this yesterday. Online, it looks way bigger than this. This is a tiny little mic. It is, I think the technical, it's very, very small. And so we're going to see what this looks like here. And I don't know whether I needed to put software in to make it work or not. So we're going to find out. We're going to see if it just shows up as a device or not. So there I plugged it in. It has turned on.
U47.
Is that a USB mic?
Sorry?
Is that USB?
It's a USB only. So this doesn't have, and so I won't be able to hear myself when it'll be more difficult for me to hear myself with it once I switch over. But let me see if I see it. I see it. It comes up as a Hype mic. There we go. So this is can you hear it? Can you hear me here talking?
Need more gain. More gain.
Yeah, it's about 20 dB too.
Can you hear me now? Is it louder there?
Better. That's better.
Is that better? So this is now I can't hear. Oh, you're not getting both. You're just getting this one. So I hear myself through the Stellar. So I don't hear this one. How does this sound? I guess is the difference between this and the Stellar? I guess is the question. This is a $300 or $300 and some dollar, $350 mic. So it's an expensive mic. It's very small.
It's fairly sensitive to position in front of your mouth. So if it's more in front of your mouth, it's much louder. And if it's off to the side, it drops down considerably in level.
Well, it's pointed towards I'm not a big fan. If it doesn't work, if it only works like this, I'm not going to use it because there's too many plosives.
No,
a lot more proximity effect in front,
Yeah, it actually sounds pretty good. It's got a thicker sound than anything else we've heard.
Let me see if I can hook my headset into it. I may not be able to hear both of everyone here. Hold on one second.
It's a missed opportunity here to use a DJ fader to just go between these two.
Okay, there we go. I can hear myself.
Problem is with Zoom going between a USB only and a XLR.
Well,
Now,
yeah,
the other thing is, hold on one second. So I hear myself very badly. Like it's
Sound fine to us.
better here. It doesn't handle, so it doesn't, I can tell you right now. I think it's designed, I don't know what it's designed for, but it's one of those things like it wants to have a headset output that doesn't necessarily match me. So anyway, so I am watching this here. It's got little lights on it that now I don't know if this is a mode switch, so this might change the way it sounds. Now, you can't hear it. That's a mute switch. No, maybe it's not. Can you hear me? Did it change in quality? No. Okay.
Switch it again. Let's see. We weren't.
Now did it change? Oh, I said change. It's interesting. Did it change at all there when I pushed that button?
Yeah, a little
seem
bit.
to. Little. Maybe is it a low frequency
bit.
roll off? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Headsets here.
Is it a button or a switch?
Ooh, you're falling apart.
You're at the wrong sample rate or something. Yeah.
Boy, that's just completely
You're out of-
digitally
Out of
failed.
sync with the packets are out of sync.
It may be out of sync. But we
No,
did all
this
these
is like
things
a
right
bad
because I had not
satellite
turned
connection.
original mic on. So we might have back at a lot of these. Anyways, might be some of the noise that I'm hearing.
You're a total fail area.
Yeah, I think we.
Unplug the USB and plug it back in again to resynchronize, restart it, rehandshake.
And did anyone catch which mic that is?
The worst one so far.
No.
No,
You can't hear.
Digital dropouts everywhere. Sounds like sample rate mess up.
mismatch.
So the other thing that I'm having,
It's still messed up if you're on your
We can't.
Stellar.
It's unintelligible.
Yeah, this
you have
is-
to go back to the Stellar or something.
If this was at a commercial job, you'd be throwing it at the wall now.
Let's give them a plug. Which mic is it?
There you go.
Well, it did sound fine the first time.
Sounded fine until it
Sounded
lost
fine
its,
for
a little
5
bit
minutes.
of a break.
There was that button.
until it lost its mind.
Courtney had to go and ask, are we talking about a button or a switch? And broke the
Yeah,
universe.
Yeah.
Right.
The basketball through
Maybe
a tube.
that button changes the sample rate or something on the output, and it doesn't notify.
Yeah, it could be. That's what it sounded like, a bad mismatch, and just
doesn't
couldn't keep up with
notify
it dropping out.
the Zoom that it's changed sample rates. Yeah.
If I can show a funny story real quick, because Alex
So I
talked about
realized
the-
I think what happened here looking at it is, so a lot of those might have been tested without original sound on. I turned original sound on when I came in, I believe. But when I switch any of these mics, it's automatically turning off again. So original sound, every time I switch the mic on the USB connection, which I had done a couple times at the beginning of the show, it automatically turns this off. It turns off original sound, and I just didn't see. Now it's off again. All right. So anyway, that is super annoying, by the way. I don't know. It's like
Are you listening, Zoom?
well, yeah. I mean, yeah. So frustrating that it will turn off every time you change your source. So as I was testing stuff before the show, I may have turned it off. So I still think that we got a pretty good flavor of those, and we'll have to do another mic off. This is what we learn along that way. But we can do a couple redos here. I'm not going to go back to any more of the USB ones because of the turning off original sound automatically, which is super annoying.
Can I share a funny story real quick about a mic and talking about what the size of what you thought that mic was? Similarly, I caught a glimpse of this Saramonic shotgun mic, and it looks awesome. And this is a lightning connector, plugs right into your iPhone. And I mean, of course, you have to realize the size based on that lightning plug. But, I mean, look at it. This looks like my my 416 shotgun mic. This is going to be fabulous. And, man, it goes right to a lightning, and it's got that joint that you can adjust it so you can just kind of have it with you and mount right onto your phone. And, man, it showed up, and, I mean, it was like the size of like a chiclet or a stick of gum, and it was the worst sounding mic I'd ever heard. I was just way better off just using the phone's mic. So,
plus it risks you breaking your lightning connector and turning your phone into a brick.
Well, this thing was so cheaply made that it's guaranteed it will fail before your phone. So I guess there's that plus.
So I'm gonna hold on one second here. We're going to go through a couple of these just so you can hear them again in this, because I may have been hearing something different than when I said, oh, this is a really noisy mic. They may have been. So we'll just do them relatively short, right, because we don't have a ton of time. We've got some questions coming in. This is that cheap one. So let's see if this sounds any different. I can't remember. I don't know when original audio got turned off, so I don't know exactly when that is. So we're just going to back up a little bit here.
This is the $20 job?
This is the $20 one. So here we go. Now can you hear is that noisier than it was before? Yeah, that's what I was hearing. So that's the noise that we have there, that we talked about a little bit earlier. And I'll go to the pod mic too, because it probably would make a difference there. Hold on, stand by.
It's like a lesson in training your ears to hear the subtleties of all the different microphones. It's always fun.
All right, so this is the, to get back up to it, this is the pod mic. So now you can probably hear something you couldn't hear before, which is what I was hearing when I was saying, oh, it's a really noisy mic. This is the pod mic, pretty close up to me, almost touching me, or touching my chin there. So yeah, so now you can hear the noise that I was talking about as it's gained up. I have that turned up right now. Let's see, I'm going to turn up to, that's up to 70. I'm going to pull this back a little bit on the gain, or on the fader here. So yeah, so at this level, now you can hear what I was hearing, which is, I'm saying, this is a really noise, it's got a lot of self-noise. It's got a lot of self-noise. So anyway. You'd
never be able to use it where you had it out of the shot,
No, you could never. This mic wants to be in the shot. It has to be in the shot, and
it's in the name, right? Pod mic. Can you give it a little plosive test to see? I mean, does it have any merit?
I can talk right into it. I can plosive. It doesn't with this on it. It's pretty, but this much self noise.
We're hearing them.
Yeah, I don't think I would go. I don't think I would use that there. So hold on. I'll go back to
how much of that thinness
do
you guys think a little bit of EQ would at least improve?
Yeah, we're not testing for EQ. Like, I can fix a lot of things. I can fix a lot of video and audio. I will not buy a mic that I have to correct. Like, that's what I'll say is that, like, if I feel like I have to correct it, I'm not going to buy it. Hold on one second.
Are you going into the Mix Pre 3 or the Scorpio?
Mix Pre 3, but I think they have I'm not sure if they have the same preamps, but they're both very good. They're both very quiet. I'm going to turn this one down a little bit here. And so this is again, there's some self noise inside of the MV7 that's more than the Stellar, but it is a, hold on one second also, hold on.
That one's splashing S's and such.
So this is the, now I want to test this one more time. So anyway, so this is the MV7, as you hear it, and this is the one we send out right now. And it's a little bit more expensive, a little less expensive than the pod mic, I believe. But this is the one that, again, it has fairly good off axis, so you can kind of hear it go in and out there. So that's.
And this is the model that has both USB and XLR?
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not a very good USB. So it's got the micro.
To hear, I don't know how tough that is for you, but
I'm not going to do that again. We have to do a different test for, it's too the way my system's piped, it's way too hard to hook the USB mics up. That's what I learned real quickly. We'll try to do that another time.
You must have switched back to the other mic though, because you pointed that away and it didn't diminish at all.
No, I'm on this right now. You can't hear me, so that's the one I have.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So
we are hearing a lot of noise right at the edges, like there's a noise gating going on. Are you sure you don't have personalized audio on or something? We hear some gating going.
Yeah, I've heard that in Zoom. I have it set to high fidelity, original sound for musicians, echo cancellation's off, stereo audio's off. I don't know. Yeah, there's no personalized audio on. We have heard this in Zoom where sometimes we feel like it sounds processed and we can't figure out where it's being processed. So I'm not totally sure. I'm going to try this pod mic one more time because I had 48 volt on. Hold on. So this is actually better. So some of that noise, that self noise, was because 48 was on. With 48 off, it does sound better. It sounds present. There's still self noise in there that I find to be, again, for live, I wouldn't want it. I can still hear it. I think you can hear it now with that on. So, but still, there's enough self noise that I probably wouldn't use it. For that, if I unless I had now Noise Assist will fix this in a heartbeat. It's I don't have it set up on this channel, but it would definitely clean it up. That kind of thing if you had that. But I got to send these mics out and get it directly from there. I'm not sure that I would change this. I'm not sure I would change from the MV7 for this mic. I guess.
Problem is that one is so directional. If you get off it just a little bit, you're going to drop. And if you're not going to have somebody writing the gain on them, that might be a problem if talent is.
I don't know if it's that much more. I don't know if it's that much more directional than the MV7. I mean, I think the MV7 is pretty directional as well, and we have that problem where people wander off of it and come back into it. Yeah. So I don't know if it's that much different there. And I'll well, we have just a little bit more time here. I'm gonna hold on one second.
Now, I wonder if anyone on the panel has experience with this. This is their model up from the podcaster mic. It's bigger. It's got a little bit more of the internals in terms of internal shock mount, pop filter, et cetera. It looks like they're this is their take on Lectro voice, like RE20 or one of those. Anyone have experience with this microphone?
Yeah, I think, this is actually, so now you can hear what.
Is that an NT3? What is that?
This is the MT. This is the NT2. I'm just using it again because we didn't have it, original audio on, so now you can hear it with the original audio on. I think. I don't know when that got turned off. And Mickey wants a round 2 of JJ's mic, please. All right, so this is the NTG2 at about a distance that makes sense for that mic. More sibilance, but you can now hear a little bit of self noise, but it's not bad. Okay, stand by. So this is JJ's mic. So there you go. This is the JJ mic, so this is the round 2 for Mickey. JJ's mic at that distance there. So
it sounds a lot different than it did before.
Yeah. So this is JJ's mic. And I was hearing it just fine. So anyway, so this is JJ's mic, which I think sounds really good. I mean, it's a really nice sounding mic here. So what? Oh, okay. So this is JJ's mic. I'll go back to the Stellar so you can compare it.
What it doesn't sound like to me is much airiness in there. It's good, and it's got a really solid bottom all the way up to mid-range. The mid-range is clear. It's the air.
That can
on
also
top
be the
that's
distance,
missing.
so it might want to be a little bit further away. So this is a little further away with JJ's mic, but I think that it's actually, it does sound. It's a pretty solid mic as far as that goes, as far as the content there. And then and I'll go back to the Stellar here.
You just put the capsule in backwards. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you said the word
hearing
actually, the sh of shoe wasn't coming to me as crisp as I might hope for. But that's a very small problem. It's a good mic other than that.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is what we have there. John Fisher said that the MV7 benefits from replacing the original windscreen with the longer Shure RK345 windscreen. We could take a look at that as well. Anyway, so there you go. So there's any other ones we want to go back to?
Do you have your normal cadre of fans turned on since you're not using any noise reduction anywhere along the line? So your room sounds really quiet now when you're not talking. So
there's not that much. There's not much going on here. It is pretty much. I can hear it. There's a pump that's right outside my room that I can hear a little bit, but there's not a lot of other noise going on right now. And just coming back to the TLM 102 with original sound on. So there's the TLM 102 that's there, which sounds pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty full sounding one. And again, when we tested these the last time, I think we were not we weren't testing them in the same room. So
say actually into that one too.
Actually.
See, I think that one wants you to be a little bit closer.
Maybe a little bit closer, but yeah, it does. I mean, it definitely gets proximity when you get a little closer.
See, I'm not listening for the low-end rumble. I'm listening to the difference to those T's and S's that make speech really clear for people.
Yeah.
And that's where the
We are glad the Dauphin is so pleasant with us, his President of Paints. I will say it feels like a little less sibilance than the Stellar. So if we think about sibilance and then we talk about sibilance here. They're pretty close. I mean, again, I would say the Stellar at this point feels a little harder than the 102 as we kind of listen to it there.
It's less buttery.
Yeah, a little less.
I definitely prefer you on that 102 there.
Yeah. So we'll we might play with it a little bit. I might fiddle with it. I think the Stellar is great, and I love being able to suggest it because it's $200 and it's not. This is a little bit more of you got to be really serious about it. So we have to always remember that we are comparing two mics that are very different in price. So anyway, I don't think there's necessarily winners or losers in this. I just think that we're just testing a bunch of different things there, and hopefully
one of them stands out to me that could get the title loser.
Yeah. The Chinese $27 one is probably not the right one there.
No, I'm talking about that little one that broke the whole universe.
Well, it's just that I realized when I was testing it before the show that I must have been flipping the musician on and off, and I'll have to test that one a little bit more before I send it back. But I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. But it's so small. But the fact that I will admit, one of the things that worries me, one of the things I like about the MV7 is that we can turn it up and there's very few dials to hit. Like when I see a lot of dials on the front of a mic, I get worried because I don't know what I'm going to do there. And by the way, if we kick back any of these questions, we're going to jump to a couple of questions. We're going to run out of time. I'll see. We're going to run out of time, but we're going to answer a couple of questions, but definitely bring those questions in tomorrow. We'll talk about them then as well.
Is there a way to turn off those that touch sensitive ring?
I wish
on that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So we try to make sure that we do that before we send it out. Make sure it's turned all the way up. I wish it didn't have any way to make any adjustments to it.
Right, but then someone just grabbing it to try and move it, can
you try
hit that.
You try. Right, and if they sound low, we always say, "Do you see all the buttons?" We have to explain it to them that they have to do that.
Maybe
let's cut through a couple questions.
Sure. The first one comes from Matthew LeCount in Oakland, California. What are the panel's personal characteristics they're looking for in a mic for use in Zoom?
Go ahead, Marty.
All right, so we kind of addressed this earlier. It's having the microphone characteristics complement the voice and the acoustics of the room.
Yeah, the acoustics of the room is a big deal. Like, again, I built this room for a larger diaphragm mic because of that. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Why might you prefer a large diaphragm for a studio mic?
I think your voice sounds better. Like, I think a larger diaphragm, your voice tends to sound better and more present when you have a large diaphragm than with a smaller diaphragm. So that's why you would lean for it. The downside is that when I plugged the Stellar in and when I got these headphones, and I suddenly realized how much of my room I was picking up and sending back into the show, I was kind of mortified. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, in a large diaphragm, you need a treated sound field because it'll take everything. It'll take a pretty picture of everything it hears, including, like I joked about, the gnats flying by. So if you don't have a treated space, it's usually a bad solution because you'll hear too much outside traffic and junk, AC, stuff like that.
Yeah, go ahead, Marty. Can't hear you.
Sorry, a large diaphragm mic will be more sensitive. It will have a lower noise floor. It will have more dynamic range.
Next question.
Robert Sabatity in Poland. Interpreters prefer headsets with boom mics as it keeps their hands free to move around as well as limits the amount of stuff on the desktop. Any recommendations?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Go ahead, Harshid. I can't hear you, Harshid.
I would say check out Remote Audio is one of the companies because they use a lot of different source a lot of different mics from like Bear Dynamics and such. And then a second one would be Audio Technica has a pretty decently priced set right now. They use a A50 or ATR50 headset with the boom arm. Just look up the long name that they have, but it's out there. That makes the A50 sound for the headsets or for ear cups, and then they use a good microphone for it. So give those two a try.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to do as far as quality goes. So a lot of the headsets that interpreters use for me are painful, like hurt my ears when they talk. And so we try to replace those. A lot of times we get much higher broadcast versions. So Sennheiser, the Sennheiser HMD 26s. Yeah, the Sennheiser and Shure make these broadcast ones. That one that Courtney's showing. These are much more expensive headsets, and they sound like it. So that's the thing that we kind of move towards a lot of times. Crown makes a great headset mic that Garth Brooks and other people use, and it sounds actually really nice. These heavier broadcast mics is stuff that we have often gotten in the past, and we keep them in our kits. And they definitely make a big difference in the sound. It doesn't matter if you don't have a good interface. So one of the things I'm really excited to do is test the new Studio Technologies mic, and to see if that actually is could be a better solution there. But So I would use broadcast headset mics are really so much nicer than what most interpreters use.
A lot of the broadcast mics do have noise canceling microphones, which are important if you're in an area where you're not isolated from the person speaking. So it will keep the person speaking from bleeding into you.
And that includes other interpreters, that's the other problem with it. But we've used a lot of different things. But yeah, the headset, they want a headset mic, and then when you give them a really good one, some will complain because it's heavy. They have a lot of the interpreters use these really lightweight mics and lightweight headsets that aren't, again, they're more comfortable for them, and they can argue that, we have to wear this all day for a thing. But we really prefer to get a really high quality broadcast headset mic that they would use for something like an NFL game or a soccer. Soccer games are oftentimes using those lip mics. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. If we don't have a Sheps with noise assist on a mix pre, what can be done with filters, gates, compression, and limiters to help the mic signal?
Go ahead, Bill.
This reminds me of photography. The better the camera that takes the original shot, the more you can do without it falling apart. If you have a poor resolution original, the more stuff you do to it, the worse it gets. I consider that the same thing with microphones. Starting with a really solid capture is how you're able to have flexibility in being able to process it more without it falling apart.
Yeah, Roscoe mentions EQ, and EQ is important as far as being able to just touch up some of those things. Again, I try to find it. I try not to use gates. Gates are the thing that I hear the most when someone puts a gate in. You can hear it going, and you can hear that noise floor coming in and out. So I really try to avoid gates. But EQ and some compression can make a big difference. But the best thing to do is to try to find a mic that you're happy with in the space without any processing. Then if you process it, it just makes it a little bit better. Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. Do we torture ourselves with fads on microphones? Seems like I keep buying and buying and buying only to confirm what I like. Which number on the fingers of one hand?
Go ahead, Jeff.
It's really tough to be objective, especially when there's something you've used for a long time. That is burned into your brain. That's what it should sound like. So, the only honest way to evaluate something else is really to use it for a while, a couple of days, so that it stops being different and you're just hearing it for what it is. And that's the only way. It's never going to sound good compared to your favorite beloved mic or headphones or anything else.
Go ahead, Bill.
And also remember, like violins, right? If you're an average violinist, giving you a Stradivarius doesn't make you any better a violinist. If you are an excellent violinist, that violinist will know the difference and work the difference between a mediocre violin and an excellent violin. So part of it is you, the performer, learning to up your equipment as you get better at what you do.
And a lot of reason we're constantly looking at mics is that we're constantly trying to find less expensive mics to send to people. So if one is good, we're like, hey, let's use that one. Next question.
Oliver Breidenbach in Salzburg, Austria. How much can you influence the sound of a mic using the EQ in a mixer? I was once shown by a great sound engineer how to make people sound good using the EQ in our studio mixer, but unfortunately, I forgot how to do it.
Go ahead, Marty.
You can influence the sound of a microphone with EQ a lot, and it is possible to influence it too much to make it actually sound worse. One of the things that we want to keep in mind is that when you add EQ to a signal, you're also changing the phase response of that signal, which is one of the reasons why we want to try and find a microphone that requires the least amount of processing, particularly EQ, as possible. And as we mentioned earlier, one microphone may sound great on one person, but not so great on another person. And so we want to have a fairly good arsenal of tools to choose from for different kinds of people. And, when we're sending out kits, that can be difficult to do because we don't know what those people are going to sound like. We don't know what room they're going to be in.
And I also want to throw one more in here. I forgot that John Wallace had suggested one, and that was actually one of the other reasons that I wanted to put this one in. And I put it in a box, and I realized I hadn't used this one. I don't know why it just popped into my head. But we'll do this right before we run out of time here. So this is the Pro AR C414. And so this is my Stellar, and this is the AR C414. So this is actually a pretty good sounding mic. This is $80. So this is an $80 mic. And if we talk, it still has, it picks up a little bit of Omni. So I'd be a little bit maybe concerned, but I think for the price, it's a pretty good mic. This is $80, $80 mic. And this is probably the best one under $100 that I've heard. It's not, I may not replace the mic that I'm using for it. And there's a little bit of some of the high end isn't there in the same way that I had before, but it feels very full, as far as what it's picking up there. And again, I realize I got to make sure I include this mic because it was one of the ones that was in the test cycle.
Might need a pop filter in front of that. It was a little bit more sensitive to plosives, but
yeah. Well, it's off to the side. I don't know if it's plosiving now. It shouldn't.
It just did right then when you said.
When I said plosive,
and when you first started, you had a hard P, I think.
Yeah, so to the side, I think that it works pretty well, and you could put a pop filter on it. But I think that it's actually a pretty good sounding mic, and again, for $80, not bad at all. So that's the Pro AR C414.
From who? Pro AR.
Pro AR C414. And I bought it off of Amazon.
So it's a copy
you might look into the original
product.
Yeah, the AKG 414C.
Yeah, that's obviously that's
BULS and the rest of those, $250 or so.
Yeah. So, but looking for, again, we're always looking for ones that are less expensive that we can use for these types of things. And again, under $100 is the best one that I've heard. Let's
now,
go.
Oliver was asking about, EQ in the studio. And what I'll say about that is, when you're working in a studio and you have a mic locker with all kinds of microphones, you will spend, a typical engineer will spend a considerable amount of time on choosing the key microphones. That would be the vocalist, the guitar mics, trying to find the microphone that has the voicing that the producer and the artist feel sound best for them. When you have that luxury of choosing, you put them to use. And even in the field, you might have a couple of different microphones that you have that are portable enough that you can carry safely, so that you have different tools to use for different applications. So particularly shotgun microphones, you want to have one microphone that works great outside, but that microphone would not sound great inside.
I mean, the reason I have some of these mics laying around is because I'm thinking about them in different areas. I have a little headset mic that I pack that has nothing to do with it sounding good. It has to do with it's really small. So headset mics are, everything has their own reason. A lot of these mics we're trying to find cost-effective ways to do it, so that's why we're buying them. But for some of them, it's, I need a shotgun mic, I need a lav, I need a headset, I need something with a lot of off-axis rejection. I have a great room and I want something to get every part of my voice. Those are all things that you use to make decisions. And so it's never one mic. It's always lots of different ones that you might choose. Thank you all. And hopefully that was useful as far as a good discussion about mics and what we're looking at there. It's really, really good hour there. So thank you so much to the panelists for being part of this conversation. We can't do this without you, of course. And thank you so much to our audience. A lot of questions and a lot of great conversation in the first hour and in the second hour. So thank you so much for your questions. And remember, anytime we send questions back to you, you can always bring them back in. So we send them back to you. If they're a QR code, they live in the QR code world. And some of them, we were so caught up in this that we might bring some of those questions in tomorrow. But if they get sent back to you, they're in your notes. So just a quick reminder of that. And then thanks to obviously the producers for asking all those great questions and keeping it going and keeping the conversation going here in the chat. Thank you to the incredible team on the back end that made this work, that cuts the show, that engineers the show, develops for the show, and manages the show. We really appreciate all of your contribution. We can't do this without any of you, and it's an amazing thing that we've somehow put together here. And it takes a small village every single day to make it work 7 days a week. We traveled 59,000 miles today, 95,000 kilometers, and that is 470 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. I really need like a padlock that just says original sound for musicians on.
That Pro AR is $64 with a coupon right now.
$64. It sounds really good. I mean,
and that includes a shock mount and the pop filter.
Yeah, and that's what I just realized is it includes that pop filter, so they're aware.
It's in the bag. I have a tendency to only pull out what I need at a very carefully because I never know if I'm going to keep it or not. But I might keep that one because it sounds good. So we'll see how that looks there. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow.